All right, in this video we're going to go over the card path at card jams, the proper way to load cards, both Smart Chip, Magstripe, and the various different cards that can run through these if you have the EMV encoders and things like that. We've already done videos talking about like a broken ribbon, how to reattach that. So what I've done here is I simulated a card jam. I've fed a card in here. If I shut this, it'll spit it out. So it's not going to be exactly real world, but if you're getting an error, like for instance error 97, that could be not just a break. It can also be that there's a card jammed. So a lot of times the best way to clear a jam is just to open anytime you're dealing with a jam, in my opinion, open the door, take out the ribbon and the film, remove them, and then shut the door and see if it cycles through. If it doesn't, unplug the printer, plug it back in, let it boot up and cycle again, and see if that does it. If that doesn't do it, then we're going to go over right now the card path and how to attempt to remove it safely without damaging any of the rollers or components inside the card path. So this is a simulation. We have a card that got stuck. We went through the process of removing the ribbon and film. We've shut the door. It didn't cycle out. We powered it down by unplugging the printer, powered it back up. It booted up but still didn't clear the jam. So in that case, when you open the door, you can see right here that the menu says cover is open. You have forward and back. So that's you can spin the rollers forward and back by using these buttons right here. But what I'd like to do right now is we'll go over the card path. So we'll go ahead and remove the input tray. I'm going to get some light here so we can see. Okay. We can see in there, if I use the forward and back, you can see that card that's right in there. The white. So I've simulated it. That's the card that's in there. So if you see that in there and it's stuck somewhere in there, the card path is from the input tray here. It goes through there, and then if you look up here, pull this printer forward. You can see the card right up here, the white. So you've got the heated, this is the heated roller. It raises up to the non-heated transfer roller. Then you've got your film here, which goes between, and then you got your ribbon here, which this is the print head that prints to the ribbon to the film. So from here, what you can do is attempt to just use the forward and back with the door open to see if you can get it to move. If for some reason it's not, sometimes the reason I like to remove the film is sometimes it'll kind of stick to it. So if you pull it out carefully, because sometimes if it is kind of fused to this, you can mess up the ribbon. But kind of wiggle it, pull it out. Back to this side, I think we can see it in there in this video. There's the card. You don't want to ever, I use various picks and things like that. You don't want to be doing that, because if you gouge some of these rollers in there, then it's not going to work right. You can use something like a screwdriver, something blunt, but again, that has a corner that you need to be very careful about gouging anything. There's a metal guide in here, right here, that you can bend. But if you just give it a little bit of a push in conjunction with using the forward and back, you should be able to loosen it up and pull it back. If it gives you too much trouble, you can also, you need to be very careful about it down from underneath. Just going to put the light there so we can see. You need to be very careful about, you can see the card right there moving. Okay, so it's right here. Need to be very careful about putting anything up in here. The same thing. Stay away from these rollers. Right here in this direct path, you can see the roller right here. Directly above that is the upper non-heated roller. And then you've got a roller, a small roller here, and then another one above that, which should be protected by the card, but you can kind of just make sure that it's not sticking on anything that way as well from underneath, but you need to be very careful. The point is not to force anything. If it's jammed in there enough to where you're having to really force it, I get machines back all the time that have gouges in these rollers and things. You're just going to need to seek service. It's better and less downtime and definitely less costly to do that than to damage these rollers. But you should be able to, on most jams, most of the time, just use it opening the door with this forward and reverse, forward and back, and maybe even just jostling it a little bit, being very careful. I don't even know that I would use a screwdriver. You can get all kinds of different things that are blunt that you could use in there. The point is just to make sure that it's not stuck to something, especially. Oh, the other thing to look for that I almost failed to mention is you want to make sure this roller right here is down, like it is right here. It has this gap. If there's no gap there and this lower heated roller is up against the non-heated roller, this is the home position in the down position. So that's another issue, and there's a problem with your printer. If when you plug it in, it powers up. If that isn't in the lower position right here, that's a whole other ball of wax there. So we don't want to, if that's up, we don't want to be attempting to, first of all, you're going to have a hard time getting your ribbon out, but you definitely don't want to be in there poking around with anything if that's up. That's how you're going to gouge those rollers. So that's the paper path. If we follow it all the way through, it goes through the printer, and we can see if we watch right here, through that little tiny gap. It's right there, and it goes through the flipper. And out the exit here. So if it's stuck in, it can occasionally happen here as well. We'll go ahead and start from the beginning. Feed that back in. If it's stuck in the flipper, if it's not going into here, more than likely it's going to be not receiving it into here. It's not pushing it far enough in. Generally, what that signifies is that sometimes over time and how these things are handled, these brackets that attach down here, they're metal. They go into the plate that holds the main board on the printer. They can bend in things, so we have some flex, and so they'll be out like this. The best thing I've found for that, it's pretty simple, is just get this is a pack of labels. I've used a thin spiral notebook, things like that. So if you wedge up one side, it'll put that closer together, and it should eliminate. I've especially noticed this on older systems that have the lamination module too. So they're out here like this, and they have a tendency to flex. Even on a flat surface, sometimes you'll have big gaps like this on both sides. So that's where I use the spiral notebook a lot of times. I'll put it on the edge of the, I don't see it a lot on these, but on the edge of the laminator to pull these back in closer. And then most of the time that will fix it. Again, if you get a card stuck in here that won't come out, it could be that these little O-rings right here on these exit rollers are either hardened or possibly even broken and missing and things. So that would require, service and things based upon the age and the number of cards that have been produced on your printer. All right, so that's the card path, clearing jams. Now we'll go on. We'll talk about the input and inserting the various cards. Obviously, blank cards, it really doesn't matter which way you put it in. We'll first talk about mag stripe cards. So on your input tray, you have this diagram here, and this shows you a picture of the stripe and the smart chip. So on a stripe, you want the stripe up and to the left in the tray, just like so. That's how a stripe card is inserted into the tray. And let me grab it. I forgot to grab it before I start videoing. Okay, so here's a smart chip card. Remove those. And this one happens to have a stripe as well. You may or may not have a stripe on your smart card. But again, the smart chip goes down and forward towards the printer. So in this case, we would flip it over. In this case here, we'd have mag stripe, so it's up as well. But if it was a chip card without a stripe, it would goes down with the chip forward towards the printer. And that's how those would load. Get out of there. And now I've set my, sorry about this delay here. I thought I had my I-class card sitting here. Okay, I grabbed it, but I've evidently set it down. All right, on an I-class card, generally you'll have some printing down here. Like if you get an HID I-class, it'll say HID or whatever the brand is. It'll be printed here. That printing goes up and in the printer this way. I'll update this video at some point. When I find that. But again, the main thing, most people with the smart chip is going to be down and forward. If you're using the mag stripe, up and to the left. And that is the card path jams and the proper way to load cards. The other thing is make sure that when you're putting this in there, you can get it to insert, and it kind of snaps, but it sits back. And you'll start getting jams. So see how that just popped forward like that? It snapped, and it appears to be in there, but it's not. It needs to be forward. So as you're inserting that, just kind of give it a little wiggle there. If you're getting a feed error, generally we don't have a lot of problems with feed errors unless we're having an issue with the motor that drives this roller right here. That's what pulls the card in. So that's the card path, jams, and feed, and that's it for this video.